got 77 counties in Oklahoma. I can put reports in them in 66 counties.
911, what are you reporting?
We got someone or something crawling around out here.
Did you see what it was?
I'd say it was a person or somebody really big. But he's all in black.
Welcome back to Squatch Ranger Files, Episode 20. I've been doing this show for 1 year now, and I'm really excited about more episodes to come. I just want to say thank you to all the people out there and all the eyewitnesses who have shared their Bigfoot encounter. If you have a Bigfoot encounter, please submit it to squatchranger@gmail.com. Also, you can become a patron. I will provide my patreon.com link to the description of this video. If you like the videos that I provide and you would like to see more content, check out me on patreon.com. And one final thing, if you'd like to check out our products on the Squatch Ranger store, please visit the website. I will provide a link to our website on the description of this video. We have several different products: Oklahoma Bigfoot t-shirts, Oklahoma Bigfoot koozies, and Oklahoma Bigfoot car decals. You can purchase one of our Bigfoot products on our website. Okay, it's now time for Squatch Ranger Files, Episode 20. Number 1. Man finds 14-inch footprint on game trail. 2015. Mercer County, West Virginia. Class B, smell odor. Class B, tree structures and nests. And Class B, vocalizations. West Virginia experience. 4 years ago, we went to West Virginia to visit my cousin's son. They live near Princeton, West Virginia, on top of a mountain. The second day there, during a candid discussion about Sasquatch, his wife informed us she had heard tree knocks behind an outbuilding. She said this scared her. She also stated a large creature was seen carrying a wild turkey by some loggers near where they live. She asked if we wanted to ride up in the woods where they disposed of their old cooking grease. They didn't put it in their garbage containers because of bears getting into them. We drove a mile or so from the house and dumped several containers of used grease in the woods. She then wanted to show us a game trail a short distance from the disposal site. There was a wet spot in the game trail and a 14-inch footprint was in it. There was no claw marks showing in the track, which was too large for a bear. After returning to the house, I went exploring east of the house. This area of West Virginia is coal mining country, with a lot of abandoned coal mines near their land. There was no normal wildlife noise. You could get a distinct skunk-type odor in the air. I walked the trail to the end of the bluff and back, but did not see anything. After a couple hours, I went back out again. This, as I walked past a windrow of trees along a fence line, I heard what sounded like wings beating up against something. The undergrowth was too thick to see through. Coming to the end of the windrow, there was a gap to another windrow of trees that followed a fence at a right angle. I heard a loud grunting noise coming from the tree line at the bottom of the field, above a bluff area, but never saw anything. After eating, I decided to head back. My kinfolk had several dogs, but they would not go out with me. As I started down the trail along the windrow of trees, where I had heard the bird wing noise, I thought I saw a dog laying in the trail, but no dogs came with or went ahead of me. Laying in the trail was a fawn's head. It wasn't there earlier. I headed back to the house to tell my kin what I had seen and grabbed my pistol. They couldn't understand where the head came from. We could not find any tracks around the head. The trail was about 4 foot wide with vegetation on both sides. That shut down my exploring for the day. The next morning, I went back down to the area and the head was gone. That day, I saw a wild turkey in the fields. Wildlife noises and animals were back to normal. Went to the tree line at the eastern edge of the field and entered the woods following a trail. About 100 yards in the woods, it got quiet and the odor returned. Never observed anything, but I sensed something was present and followed me just below the hill. I followed the trail to its end above a bluff. Returning back along the trail, the wildlife activity returned. 2 years later, we made a trip back out for a visit. I checked out places I had been on the first trip. I didn't encounter any activity. Taking one of the four-wheelers, I started checking out where we had disposed the grease on our first visit. Never made it back to the spot where we had seen the track. There was an open area where logging had taken place. It was an old cut. There was a wild cherry tree snapped 10 or 12 feet above the ground. It was about 8 feet where the tree was leaning over the ground. I went to investigate and found a large pile of scat on the trail. It appeared to be a fresh break. There were cherries in the scat. Then I noticed there was no wildlife activity. A distant odor was in the air. I didn't see any tracks in the dusty trail, but my sixth sense said I was being watched. Later that evening, we were fishing at the pond, and my kin had some visitors. The discussion of Sasquatches came up. One of the ladies said there had been several sightings within a 5-mile radius of my cousin's place. One was a school bus driver who observed one crossing the road on his route. She didn't say whether it was AM or PM. Another neighbor had seen one crossing their field. The hills are heavily forested in this area of West Virginia, with a lot of abandoned coal mines. There is tons of wildlife, water, and vegetation for them to survive on. Maybe my next trip? Happy squatching. Number 2. Boy hears footsteps in the brush while hunting. 1975, Southeast District, Carter County, Oklahoma. Class B, heavy footsteps. Class B, smell and odor. As I have posted before, I've never had a visual, but I was run out of an area that I was hunting in when I was 13. Never told anyone about it until now. At the time, I just thought I ended up on someone's land by mistake, and they were following me until I left their property. But as the years went by, certain things didn't add up. As I was walking along a creek, the area above me on both sides was so thick that I had no choice but to follow the banks of the creek. All of a sudden, dead silence, followed by this foul stench in the air. After a couple of minutes, I decided to leave. I kept hearing footsteps above me to my right. When I walked, it or him walked, like I was being trailed. I couldn't see anything. I finally took off as fast as I could, and whatever was up there did the same, except it sounded huge running along above me. After about 200 yards, it stopped. I didn't till I got back to familiar surroundings. Can't say who or what it was. Just can't see how anyone could have made it through that area above me without getting cut all up. Follow up NOBRO investigators report. I spoke with the witness via the internet and asked him how he came to the conclusion that the creature he encountered was a Bigfoot. The witness replied, "The stench smell, but the way it was running through the brush and thorns and hearing things snapping, can't see it being anything else." Carter County is home to the Arbuckle Mountains. This area could serve as a great habitat for Bigfoot to live and thrive. Turner Falls Park is a nearby source of water and food. The park is also home to lots of wildlife, including white-tailed deer, wild turkeys, and many other forms of wildlife that enjoy the lush area around Honey Creek. The Arbuckle Mountains range has an elevation of 1,410 feet. The range is approximately 35 miles east to west and 10 to 15 miles north to south. The main part of the range is located in northern Carter County and southern Murray County, approximately 15 miles north of Ardmore and 5 miles south of Davis. Number 3. Young teenagers spot hairy creature behind tree. 1975. Paulding County, Georgia. Class A, daytime sighting. My encounter was with my neighbor who was 13 at the time. I was 14. It happened in Paulding County, just over the Cobb County line on Burnt Hickory Road. Back then, in 1975, Paulding and West Cobb was undeveloped for the most part. Literally thousands of acres of land with a few houses peppered here and there. There was one country store called Grogan's in the Crossroads community. We were walking our bikes back to my house after getting some stuff for my mom at Grogan's. We lived on dirt roads and my driveway was a quarter of a mile long. My nearest neighbors were at the top end of our driveway. We heard something walking in the woods. We stopped. It stopped. Again and again, until we saw my neighbor's dog run from the woods, hightailing it up to my neighbor's house. At this time, we both looked in the direction the dog came from. We both saw something tall, with long legs. I mean long, hairy legs, and long arms, taking 2 steps, and then it hid behind a tree. It had its elbow sticking out, and it looked like a white patch of rubbed-off fur was on its elbow. We stood for a long time in utter terrified silence. We both were in shock, unable to move or speak. I finally looked at my neighbor, and he had tears streaming down his face. I also noticed it was almost dark. That snapped me out of shock, and I said, "We have to go." We got on our bikes and hauled ass to my house. We ran in and told our parents what we had just seen. My neighbor refused to go home alone. My dad drove behind my neighbor all the way to his house a quarter of a mile away. I didn't see the face. That's because we were looking at the ground when we had our sighting. A few weeks later, we got up the nerve to go to the tree to estimate how tall the creature was. Its elbow was right next to our burl on the tree. We looked, and the burl was a good 8 feet high from the ground. We also had something walking in the woods with us as we picked wild plums that grew along the roads. That was 2 weeks before our sighting. Follow up. NOBRO Investigators Report. I talked with the witness via the internet. The witness added the following additional details. The reason we didn't see the face was because we were looking up an embankment towards where we were and where the dog ran from. Also, this tool place was next to a power line, Under the power line, my neighbor's dad had permission to have a large garden. Below that, down my driveway, was our garden. My theory is it watched us for weeks before the sighting. Me, my neighbor, and his brother always rode our bikes after school. We'd ride and stop to talk and pick the wild plums that grew along the roadside. That's the first time we heard something walking in the woods. When we stopped, it would stop. We just brushed it off because we knew nothing about Bigfoot then. Never heard of the expression Bigfoot. Our encounter was 2 weeks later. We didn't use the term Bigfoot to describe what happened to us. Later, I heard of the Boggy Creek story, and everything connected.